died earlier today after the blasts went off in the city's southern suburbs. The Hezbollah stronghold of Beirut. Authorities believe the attack was targeting a nearby Iranian cultural center. Abdullah Azam Brigades, a group linked to Al-Qaeda, has claimed responsibility. Jennifer Lush has more.
Twin blasts during the morning rush hour. Suicide bombers, one in a car, the other on a motorcycle laden with explosives, blew themselves up within 50 meters of one another.
I
was in my car driving to work. I saw nothing but black smoke and felt a very strong hot air in my face. That's all. God help these people. Some who left for work this morning, who may not be coming back home.
Their intended target, an Iranian cultural center. Iran is a major backer of Hezbollah and both are allies of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The suburb of Bir Hassan, where Wednesday's blast took place, is a Hezbollah stronghold. Iran's embassy, located in the same area, was targeted by a bomb attack in November. Both strikes have been claimed by Abdullah Azam Brigades, a group linked to Al-Qaeda.
It's a continuity project of the same act, of the same explosions, of the same fact of terrorism around this area. And not only this area, it's targeting everybody because this is an area open to all people.
3 years of civil war in Syria has spilled over into Lebanon, exacerbating tensions between Sunni and Shiite Muslims in the country. Radical Sunni Islamists sympathetic to the anti-Assad rebellion have vowed to continue attacking Hezbollah on Lebanese soil. The ongoing violence poses serious challenges for new Prime Minister Tamam Salam and his government, formed over the weekend after a 10-month political vacuum.
Well, for more on the story, we can speak now to Bilal Saab, who's a senior fellow for Middle East security at the Atlantic Council's Brent Snowcroft Center on International Security. And he joins us down the line from Washington now. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Bilal Saab. First of all, this was the long-predicted outcome of the Syrian conflict, that it would become regional and that no doubt the first country it would take in would be Lebanon.
Well, sure. It's the weakest link in the region, and you mentioned the spillover, and I think now it has reached alarming levels. You know, 1 in 4 people in Lebanon are now a Syrian refugee. We have over 1 million refugees in Lebanon, not to mention, as your report has mentioned, the worsening security situation. Hopefully with the formation of the new cabinet, they can start immediately tackling with the security issues. But I'm lowering my expectations. The depth of the political differences is quite alarming.
Precisely on that question, we've been hearing, of course, over the last few months, the suicide bombings increasing, the number of people across the border dying as that violence spilled over. But even as that violence was escalating, the security situation needed firm political control to be kept in check. The Lebanese government has, of course, struggled to be created. In fact, it's only been created within the last few days, and essentially the country has been without a government since March 2013.
Well, I mean, the easy part was the formation of the government, although it took, you know, as you said, a number of months to form it. Now the hard part is to actually implement something and have these people sit down in one room and agree on the most pressing issues facing the country, including, you know, a counterterrorism campaign, dealing with the economic issues of the country, and, of course, the humanitarian issue of the Syrian crisis. I have my doubts about what they can agree on and to what extent they can manage their differences, because I think the name of the game today is coexistence, not necessarily a comprehensive resolution of the most fundamental differences that they have, even over the future direction of the country. They can't even agree on the smallest details, let alone on strategic issues.
And it is precisely because they are divided around the sectarian lines that are at the heart now of the Syrian conflict and at the heart of the violence that we've seen spilling over.
You know, I hesitate to say it's just purely sectarian. It's political, primarily, in my mind. I'm not really belittling the sectarian dimension of the conflict. Obviously, there's that Sunni-Shiite regional struggle for power in the region, which obviously has its impact on Lebanon. But I might be naive, but I really feel like it's primarily political in Lebanon. The regional backers of the two parties obviously see it in different ways. But in Lebanon, I've always felt that the political process can, if dealt with, you know, properly, can solve some of these issues that they're dealing with. It's just that the crisis in Lebanon has been regionalized. And so the local parties have very limited influence over what's happening inside their own country.
And what are those political divides then that are preventing the government from existing until now and being effective from now on, according to you?
I mean, well, you mentioned the issue of Hezbollah. Hezbollah's weapons in Lebanon have been a topic of contention for quite a long time. They made the thing even worse with their active involvement in Syria, which obviously the other side completely disagrees with. So there's that major political difference between the two, not to mention that the March 14 movement, headed by the Future movement, strongly believes that Hezbollah has a hand in a spate of assassinations that have targeted their own people since the death of the former Prime Minister, Rafiq Hariri. So there's huge mistrust between the two sides. Not to mention that there's the petty politics that every country has, in the region, which is, which portfolio in the ministry belongs to who and how can we divide basically the cake. So there's fundamental differences, and then there's political, petty politics differences.
Given the spectre of the past, given the old wounds, given the distrust that you mentioned between the sides, and given also the continued spillover of what's happening in Syria, is there any chance of reconciliation or indeed peace ahead? Or are we, in fact, today in Lebanon heading towards a new civil war?
I wouldn't go as far as to say that we're headed towards a new civil war. I do believe that the name of the game is going to be management of differences, something that Member of Parliament Willy Jumblatt has been talking about, and I really agree with him. It's hard to see a reconciliation because it's quite a loaded term given the depth of the differences. If they can manage to a certain extent the most pressing issues, in my mind I see it as success of the cabinet, not to mention that they have other more pressing issues, which is, to come up with a new electoral law, to try to work with the international community to come up with an economic program to deal with the massive deficit, not to mention the humanitarian issue caused by the Syrian crisis. If they can get some traction on these issues, I think it will be a success. Again, lowering all expectations.
Now, even as he manages to form a government, Prime Minister Tamam Salam the man? Does he have the mettle to take on the sorts of challenges that you describe?
I think it's a tough question. I don't personally know the man. I think he is the right person and the right job. Given the political atmosphere in Lebanon today, I think any other candidate within the Sunni community would have been controversial basically for either party. I think he was chosen to be this neutral candidate who can move the political process forward. Both sides have said that they can work with him. He needs a lot of luck and he needs a lot of cooperation from both sides. It's not just his job, it is the job of the other two sides, basically, not to mention the regional backers of both sides.
In the meantime, and even as the Syrian conflict continues, what more should the international community be doing to prevent that slide into civil unrest that we mentioned in Lebanon?
I really don't know the specifics of what the international community can do as far as managing the humanitarian crisis. I'm sure that more funding could help out, basically, deal with the plight of the Syrian people inside Lebanon. But, I mean, other than that, like I said, it's such an enormous problem. We got 1 million Syrian refugees inside Lebanon. And until the Syrian conflict is resolved, they're going to stay in Lebanon. And that has already caused so much social tension inside the country. Keep in mind that we also have a big Palestinian refugee crisis, and that's another issue that has caused a number of social concerns inside Lebanon. Could there be greater security cooperation with Lebanon's security services? Sure, but that goes behind the scenes. I really don't have any access to that. I think that the growing radicalization problem within the Sunni community is something that regional countries and the international community have every interest in tackling. It's not just Lebanon. Nobody has an interest in al-Qaeda growing in the Levant. Possibly some of that is happening, again, like I said, behind closed doors. Other than that, I mean, the political differences only the parties can resolve. There's not much else the international community can do. Regional backers can cooperate. I mean, the Saudis and the Iranians, they're not there yet. But I think the key to all issues in the region, not just Lebanon today primarily, is some sort of I don't want to call it rapprochement, but some sort of a business-minded approach to the differences that they have, because what's fueling all this tension and conflict in the region is this struggle between the Saudis and the Iranians, obviously backed by their own international partners. And it's all happening in Syria and spilling over to Lebanon, and of course Iraq is getting some of that as well. Somehow, if the Saudis and Iranians can agree to disagree but not shoot at each other, a lot of things can happen in Lebanon.
Bilal Saab, thank you very much indeed for a look there at today's attacks and the wider situation. Just a couple of minutes. The latest headlines, do stay with us.